Welcome to my sanctuary in soil and this video series on first garden basics. My name is Aisha and I'm here to share with you the knowledge that I have learned in my experience as a first-time gardener. In this video series, I'm just sharing with you the steps that you should take as a first-time gardener to start your garden in a way that hopefully is simple and is clear so that you can experiment for the first time. In this video, we're going to talk about the fourth step of your first garden, which is in what should you plant your garden. And this is going to be very important because obviously there are so many options that sometimes it's confusing as to what do I do. And so I'm going to talk about 5 options for you to consider, and then I'm going to at the end, I'm going to give you my recommendation of where you should start as a first-time gardener. Okay? So the first option is in ground. Make it simple. I'm sure somewhere in your house, you might have, dirt space somewhere. Unless, of course, you live in an apartment or in a building where you don't have dirt in your house, then you might want to wait for option 3 and so option 4 or 5, because there are options for you, tons of them. Okay, but if you have a place anywhere in your house or where you live where you have soil or dirt, you can just start in ground. Now, if you're going to be doing an in-ground garden, you need to first understand what type of soil you have in your garden, because depending on the soil that you have, you may have to do things to improve the soil so that you have a better chance for success. For example, I'm in Georgia, and in my garden space originally I had Georgia clay, and let me tell you, that is pretty bad. I'm gonna, you see here in the pictures what it looked like when I first did my garden. All I did is I got this starter plant, I made a tiny little holes, and I put the plant in. I put some soil from the bag, soil from the store, and I put the plants in there. Put a little bit of good soil on top, and that was it. And that was my first garden. And while it was not amazing, it was beautiful, and it got me so inspired to continue to grow into what it is today. And so don't be discouraged if you, and also if you don't have a lot of money to spend and you just want to see what it's like, just plant in whatever soil you have. If you can, get yourself a bag, and we're going to get into, how to plant all those things. But you might consider, that just do it in the soil that you have. Okay, so that is the first option. And remember, the only thing that you might consider, depending on what type of soil you have, is that you may have to improve it by adding good soil or dirt to it, but then that's all you got to do. Okay, that's if it's in ground. You see that this is my in-ground bed. It is literally just my Georgia clay soil that I worked really hard, mixed it with good soil and compost, and I have put products in it to improve the soil. It is still nowhere near as good as the soil in my beds, which is completely compost and good garden bed soil. So still I wanted to have my bed in the ground to see what that was like, and learn from it. You see, if you're wondering what those white things are, those are eggshells that I put around my broccoli because it was being eaten by slugs, and I read somewhere that if you put eggshells, the slugs won't go up. So I don't know if it has helped or not, but anyway, so that's what those white things are, in case you're wondering. But that's my in-ground bed, and this is 3.5 feet wide by 16 feet long. And at the end over there, you're gonna see that I have my garlic. It's looking amazing. Now, option number 2 is you can do it in beds. As you can see here, this is a bed, and back there is a different type of raised beds. That's a metal gray, and this is a white. So you can have this. Now, there are different options, materials for you to pick from. You can make your beds out of wood, you know, like I have in my bed here. Alright, so this is my wood bed, and as you can see, it is only 7 inches tall, which is more than enough for me to grow my radishes. I plant some carrots, and here's where I plant most of my lettuces, but as you can see, it's the winter, so they are all gone at this point. But this is a wood. It is a treated wood. The wood is treated with non-dangerous chemical, and so you can have this. The challenge with wooden beds is that eventually the wood, even if it's treated, it is decayed. So, you know, probably in 2 or 3 years, I've been told, I'm gonna have to replace this bed, which is why I decided to, we did this one, but then we decided to do all the other beds out of metal. So that's an option. You can also make your bed out of metal, and you can buy them pre-made. And so, you know, this is an example. This metal bed is a metal garden bed, except that the ends are made of wood. My husband did this out of materials from his work, and it has been amazing. I love it. In here, as you can see, I have onions and garlic, and over there I have some kale and Swiss chard, and it's doing fantastic. This bed is actually 10 inches tall, and I believe 2.5 feet wide, but it is, I think, 12 feet long, something like that, and it's amazing. So that's my middle bed. And here at the end are the first raised beds that I got, and they are both the same. They are 2 feet wide and 8 feet long. They're both the same. Here's where I have my cabbage, as you can see, doing fabulously. I love it. Having, you know, I'm just loving it. We're growing some cabbage, and those are 15 inches tall actually, and I love it. And so what I did is I created like a stair step. As you can see, these are 15 inches tall. These ones are 10, and then in ground. And so when I sit on my chair, I see, you know, my garden from there. Because it's not just about having your vegetables, but it's also about making them beautiful. So those are my beds. You can also make them out of, you know, rubber or plastic. That's another option. I have several pots that are out of plastic, you know, and there are some beds that are available that are out of plastic. You can also have grow bags. Here's an example of a garden, of a bag. So as you can see, this is a bag, a growing bag, and here's where I have my kale, which as you can see is doing amazing. And I love this bag, so I am definitely going to be soon planting more things behind it. As you can see, there's nothing back here, so I'm going to be planting probably some lettuces or maybe more kale, which I love to make this kale with my eggs for breakfast. And you know what? You can even have a kiddie pool as a place for you, as a bed for you to grow your vegetables, which is something that I am going to do this season. Here is the $6 kiddie pool I bought from Walmart last year. I was planning to plant some things in here. I ended up not doing it, but I'm definitely going to do it this season. And this is a shallow bed, so I think maybe strawberries or something. So you can literally plant in anything. Of course, I need to make holes inside so that it drains properly. But I'm definitely going to plant something in this garden bed. Probably lettuces or strawberries, one of the two. The next thing when it comes to beds that you need to consider is the size of the bed, right? And so I have different sizes of bed. I have one in-ground bed, as you know. I have this raised bed that is only 12 inches tall. It is 2.5 feet wide, but it is 16 feet long. Then I have another bed back there. It's a gray bed. That one is 8 feet long, and it is, I believe, 2 feet wide. And I bought that pre-made. My husband made this one for me. That one I bought pre-made. I got 2 of those. So the options are enormous of you when it comes to raised beds. Now, there's a couple of things you need to consider when it comes, if you decide that you want to do a raised bed. You might want to start with one raised bed. But things to consider with a raised bed is, number one, how tall you want it to be, right? And the height is something that you decide, you know, it could be 10 inches. My wood bed, as you saw, is only 10 inches tall. And so, and that works great. This one is 12 inches tall, and the gray one over there is 18 inches tall. So as you can see how high it is, you know, it's your choice, your prerogative. What you need to know is that whatever height your bed is, you're gonna have to fill it up with things. And so how you fill it up is going to, you know, cost you some money depending on what materials you use for it. And so the steps for you to fill your bed, recommended, is at the bottom you start with cardboard to kill any weeds or plants that might be underneath. Then you add you know, branches or, you know, sticks or logs that you might have around in your property or in your house. And then, you know, if you have leaves, dead leaves that you have accumulated, you can put that on top. And once you've filled at least half of your bed, then you can start adding soil. Your soil should be probably about 8 to 10 inches, you know, tall at least, so that the roots of whatever you plant actually are hitting that soil first. Eventually, whatever you put underneath, it will dissolve and you know, and compost, but it will take some time. So you need to make sure that you put enough soil in the top layers to be able to plant whatever plants you're going to plant. And so those are the things that you need to consider when doing beds like this. Okay. Something else that you need to consider is whether you are going to do also or the third option is vertical containers. And this year I'm going to be doing something that is called a green stock. And this is something that I've seen other gardeners use, and I'm going to show you what it looks like right here. As you can see, it goes vertical, and it has different compartments where you can put a plant in each of the compartments. Now, this is not an inexpensive option. Green stock can cost you anywhere between $100 to $200, plus the soil to put in there, because usually you wouldn't put soil that you find in the ground. You would buy, you know, really good soil from the store that has nutrients. And so that's a significantly expensive option for, you know, for a gardener. Now, another vertical option, you know, Walmart has these really cool vertical containers that are similar to the green stock. And those are, you know, I'm put a picture of them right here. Those are, you know, about $50 for anywhere between 3 to 5 layers of the same pocket style vertical gardens, and again, one plant in each of those pockets. That is a little smaller than the green stock, but it's still a great option. And then if you really want to go low cost, you know, the dollar store actually has a pretty cool vertical containers similar to that, but they're a lot smaller, and I don't know about the quality. And if this is something that you want to experiment, especially if you live like in an apartment or in a place that you don't have a garden space and you want to go vertical in a deck or something, these are great options. So so consider those as way for you to start your garden in what you're going to plant them, right? Now, the other option is pots. You know, pots are a great option. I actually have, as you know, in-ground garden. I have my garden beds, but I also do gardening in pots a lot, actually. And what I love about pots is that they are flexible, they are movable. You know, you can redo them every year and put something different in those pots. They're also less expensive because it requires less soil, right? And I'm gonna give you a secret. I got my pots for free in a flower shop. So if you have flower shops where you live, go and visit them, because these flower shops receive their plants in these pots that once they, receive the plants, sometimes they just throw those pots away. And so you go over there, be friends with them, and say, hey, do you have any of your flower pots, the buckets where you get your flowers, and say, would you mind giving them to me instead of throwing them away? And so that's where I got a lot of those pots that I have, and I love them because, number one, they're free. Number two, it's a great way for me to plant things and give it to my friends and family. All right, and so I have planted in pots. Obviously, lots of kale in pots. I have planted even okra trees in pots, 1 tree per pot. I have planted ground cherries in pots. I have planted, of course, flowers in pots. You can plant lots of things, almost anything in pots. So definitely consider that. So as I mentioned, if you are in a place where you don't have in-ground soil or big garden space, pots is definitely an option. I will continue to plant in pots just because I also think that they're beautiful, and I can move them around and make my garden amazing. Another option in what to grow is trellises. As you can see, I have an arch trellis, which is beautiful once it's full of these climbing plants. And while it is true that they are in a bed, the reality is that if you want to plant or grow plants that climb, then using a trellis for them to climb makes it really useful, because then the plant will not take a lot of space in whatever you plant them in, whether it's in the ground or in a bed. But as you plant them in here, they start growing up instead of spreading throughout your bed or of your garden space. And as it climbs, it allows you to plant more things in the same space because the other one is not getting on the way. So that's why I love this going up vertical. I plant in my vertical areas, I plant tomatoes, which is back there. In here I have planted cucumbers, I planted melons, and I have planted beans. And they look amazing as it grows and fills the trellis. Okay, so that is another option of in what to plant. While you are still using in-ground or a bed, going vertical allows you to grow a lot more. Okay, so those are the options that you have to plant, in your garden. And so there's lots of flexibilities, lots of options. But like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to give you my initial recommendation, because this is the first garden basics, right? So because this is going to be the first time that you're going to garden, my suggestion is that you either plant in ground in whatever soil you have, and if you don't have good soil, then make sure that you make the holes big enough for you to be able to add some good soil from bag soil from the store, and then just start simple like that, like I did it that way, and it was a great first experience. It allowed me to understand how things grow, and it was fabulous. And if you don't have in-ground space, then for sure, my suggestion is get those free pots that you can find in your local flower area, and just plant in pots. And then that way you can start to learn and experiment from the first time on how things grow in a garden. Okay? Okay, so that is the 4th step on the first garden basics in what to plant your first garden. In the next video, we're going to go to step number 5, and probably what you guys been waiting for, and it is what to plant. Yes, we're going to start to define what plants should you start to pick for you to start your first garden. All right? I hope that you're finding this enjoyable, that you're learning a lot, and if you are, make sure that you register to my channel so that you can see all videos future like this. And oh yeah, one more thing is that as I keep doing more in-depth tutorials out of each of these steps, I'll be coming back to this video series and adding links of the detailed videos and tutorials of all these things that I'm talking about in these videos, okay? So make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you have access to that information. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video and the next step of the first garden basics. Bye-bye.